Samsung Galaxy S25 versus iPhone 16 months later. Now, in this episode, my aim is to share with you my thoughts on the two entry-level phones from each respective manufacturer. And by the end of this video, you're going to know which one I found to be the better option. Stay tuned. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and let's go ahead and just begin right away with the price to value ratio. 100% I find the Galaxy S25 to be the better price to value. Usually you can get it at a trade-in discount, which I did. I got this for like $400 or $500 off with my trade-in, so it was a pretty good experience with that, versus the iPhone 16. I paid the full price for this, although you could do some trade-ins for this to get it down as well. Usually you get the instant discount here. You can get an instant discount if you go in store on the iPhone, but the S25 just seems to be like easier to get cheaper. Usually they throw in incentive deals as well. And moving on to the actual build and design, I also think this goes to the S25, mostly because the S25 weighs much less and it's significantly thinner. We're talking about a whole almost a millimeter thinner, so you can definitely feel that difference. Also, that camera on the iPhone 16 also sticks off the body quite a bit more. The Galaxy S25 Edge, though, should be even thinner than the Galaxy S25, so if you're looking for the most thin you can get, you'll probably want to wait on that one. They both do have aluminum frames and they both do have glass front and rear. So generally they feel kind of similar in that respect, but generally overall, that's not, my fingerprint's not enabled on that side. Generally overall, I do find the S25 to feel sleeker, lighter, and thinner. So I found it the better experience in terms of the build over the past few months. Now, I will say though that the iPhone feels a little nicer in the corners. It's still a little bit smoother around the edges. And I do like that they went to the vertical camera array like they did back on the iPhone 12. It looks cleaner to me. It's just a really clean phone, and I really do like this purple color here. It's just a really good looking color on this phone. I also really like this blue. This is a very deep Samsung-like blue, so let me know which color you think looks a bit better. So definitely, they definitely do have their own pros and cons when it comes to stuff like build. But the S25 does have something in its design or in its body that I like more, and that is it does have the nano SIM card tray. We don't have a SIM card tray over here, so we get to keep that. And both of them are IP68 or just dust and water resistant, which definitely feels more protected over, things like splashing water or dust. They're both very strong in that respect. Both are still premium phones though, so they do feel kind of delicate, as in you don't need a case or screen protector, but if you want to protect your phone here and you want to get the most money back for it, you might want to invest in that just to get the most resale value later on. When it comes to the display, I do think that the Samsung is definitely a little bit behind with the pixels per inch or the sharpness of the text. It is a 1080p panel, but it's ahead when it comes to its overall, just the smooth factor with the 120 hertz, which the iPhone 16 doesn't have. Also, with One UI 7 bringing nicer animations, this phone just flies along a little bit faster in my experience than the iPhone 16. The display itself, though, is not as good as the S25 Plus or the S25 Ultra, but most people probably won't care at this size that it's a 1080, but I wish this one was 2K. I think one of the older S20s, I think it was like the S20, had a 2K, so this one could be sharper. I don't know why they do that. I know it might be giving us better battery life, but yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of that. Also, this does have thinner bezels around the display, so it's at 91.1 screen to body ratio, which is actually thinner than that of the iPhone over here. This one actually has thicker bezels. I'm not sure if you're noticing that, but its panel is very well tuned. It's very accurate. However, it doesn't scroll quite as nice as even the Pro model iPhones or even the S25. Even some of the cheaper mid-rangers can scroll smoother than this phone, so it's a bit of a letdown on this device. It's still an overall nice package because it's still got the latest and greatest iOS software, the latest and greatest camera control button, really great software support. So like getting updates on time all the time. So, and really good polished apps. So it's still a good experience, but the phone itself definitely has a pretty bright display outside and has sharper resolution. So these kind of like have two different things: smoother display on the Galaxy or sharper resolution over here. You also do have a brighter screen on the Galaxy at 2600 nits outdoors. This one tops out at 2000, so it's a little bit dimmer. Both of them are easy to read outside, but the Samsung's a bit easier than the one on the right. This one also doesn't have always on display on the iPhone 16. We have that on the Galaxy S25. Just a note, you got to get the Pros to get the always on display. It's not available here, so we go into display. Let's go back over here into display. Scroll down, you're going to see no always on display option available on this phone. When it comes to software, I still find Samsung to be the more feature-packed phone, to be the more tool-like phone, whereas this feels just like a smartphone that you use for casual use, social media, and communications. And it does the best, I think, in that department. FaceTime, iMessage, the ecosystem, it does a really amazing job there. But the Samsung is going to win when it comes to multitasking, fun factor, feature set, Samsung DeX on board that is available here, which is funny because you can't even get Samsung DeX on the Flip series, but you can get it here on the base S25, which allows you to plug this phone into a computer and make this basically a little mini computer in your pocket. So that's pretty powerful stuff right there. You can just kind of use a USB-C out to a monitor on the iPhone, but it's just going to beam up the display of the iPhone. Not a massive deal, but what I really like about the iPhone is the simplicity. It's pretty easy to use. Like, it just has an app library and a grid of icons. Yeah, you can add some widgets and customize it a bit, but generally the apps are very polished as well. And one of the things I really like is just the overall experience is very consistent and polished. We do see, though, like, I do see some app crashes sometimes on the 16. I've seen less of those on the Samsung, but not all the apps are as nice in my opinion. In addition, I find that the Galaxy theme store and customizations make this a bit more fun to use though when it comes to this stuff. So if you like to tweak out your phone, change it up more, this is going to be the option I would recommend. I am a little bit disappointed though over the past few months that the updates don't come in as fast on Samsung devices, especially they dropped the ball on the S24. These have been getting their regular monthly updates, but that's just because the phone just came out this year. I'm a little concerned about the long-term software update speed. Like, I know we're going to get them, but we might have to wait an extra long time as it was proven this year. So Samsung really needs to get on the ball with that. Versus the iPhone, I know I'm always going to get iOS on time. Like when iOS 19 drops in the fall, I'm going to get it on time. So that's still a benefit to the iPhone. Now, we could do an updated speed test, but from a performance perspective, I do have to state that the Samsung has felt like the faster phone. This has 12 gigabytes of RAM. That's 4 over the iPhone 16. It does have a higher clock speed. It also has an 8 Elite chipset, and One UI 7 not only improves the animations, it's also faster and snappier feeling. And having this vertical app drawer, I think, lends to a faster experience as well. It's just more natural than kind of like going in here and then having to swipe to the horizontal angle. Now, some people still are going to like that, and you can actually still do that by going to, and some people probably miss that, but the overall experience kind of feels more pixel-like in there. Generally, I find navigating across this phone and using this phone just felt snappier and faster than the iPhone 16, which feels a little bit, I'm not going to say laggy, but definitely not as quick because of that 60 hertz panel. And also the A18, while a much better experience than like with the 14s when they gave you the weaker chip, it's still not as fast as the phones on the left, the Galaxy S25. So I do have to state that, will you really notice this? Probably not if you have a little bit of patience, but anybody who is really like into powerful performance, they'll notice that this phone feels just a little bit choppier, a little bit slower day to day. But neither of them are slowing you down in terms of modern app use and smartphone usage. But if you want the most power and performance, I recommend the Galaxy S25 after my several months of using both of these. And when it comes to the cameras though, the cameras, they kind of have that same, I kind of have the same take on them as I had previous years. The Samsung photos have their way of looking a little bit softer. Some people tend to think they look more accurate, more realistic. Some people think they just don't look good at all. It really depends on your take, but they do have log recording here on the Samsung. And I feel like Samsung throws a bit more value into the camera setup. You get a triple camera. You get most of the same features you're going to find on the Ultra line. And overall, it just kind of feels like I get more for my money on this camera. It is 50 megapixels and it cannot zoom 100 times, but it can still zoom further than the iPhone 16. I mean, look at this. We can go 30 times zoom. I'm not going to zoom that far in, but you get the picture. It can definitely do that. Also, the front-facing camera is a really nice quality as well. It's also not super close to the face, and you could back it out even further. You can also go to the video section here, and you can do UHD 60 on the front, which you can also do on the 16, but you can do up to 8K video on the rear, which makes this phone definitely a little bit more advanced, I would say, in the camera department than the 16. However, where the 16 shines is, number one, that camera control button is a neat addition. You definitely do get used to using it as just a button itself. You might not get used to zooming in and stuff like that. You may, but like that's not really that fast. It kind of slows it down. But you tend to get used to this feedback of like just hitting this button instead of like having to open the camera up like this. Definitely still easier to do it that way, but this tops out at 10 times zoom. The video quality tops out at 4K 60, not 8K. But where it really shines is consistency in video quality. It's very strong video quality. It's probably the one I would prefer just for video, easy video quality for social media apps and stuff like that. Photography is also very good and well optimized, very well tuned. The macro modes on here, you have some cinematic video, and it represents a pretty good value for camera as well. Definitely flagship level. We go to the front-facing camera. That also looks pretty similar to the recent years, so they haven't really gone to town here on the front-facing camera, but it's still very acceptable here on the front as well. Still 12 megapixels, but it's also 12 on the S25. My bottom line here is that months later with the iPhone 16 it's been one of the better base model camera packages they've done in a while, but it still is not enough to outdo the triple setup here on the Samsung with those features set. Unless you really love the iPhone video look, then I do think the Samsung is taking the lead there. A couple other things to talk about. We do have better connectivity on the Samsung as well. We have 6E and Wi-Fi 7. We have 7 only here. We don't have the 6E on the 16, and we also have a weaker 2.0 USB-C. This one has a USB-C type 3.2. It's also a faster charging experience. And the AI experience, which we didn't even talk too much about yet, is also better. We have circle to search on board here. You do have hold this button down for Gemini, which is a lot more, I would say, quicker to get that AI type stuff going on than Apple Siri over there. If we go over here in the settings and we scroll out of here and then we go down to Galaxy AI, you have a suite of features here, including things like the audio eraser, drawing assist, the now brief, and browsing summaries, along with call assist. Now, the iPhone does have Apple Intelligence, but it's still in beta, which is signified in settings by the Apple themselves. You can see Apple Intelligence, Siri, beta right there. So we do have the Smart Siri, and we do also have Playground, Image Playground as well on here. So if we go to Image Playground right here, you can generate AI images, which can be pretty fun. In addition to that, you can use the chatbot assistant apps on any basic Android phone these days or iPhone, which is ChatGPT, Perplexity, Grok, you know the drill, Gemini. They're all pretty much available now on these mobile platforms. But I think the integration of AI is just a little bit more advanced on the Samsung for sure. But iPhone's getting there. It's just the Android phones like the Pixel and the Galaxy are just doing a bit better, I feel like, right now in this area. And that moves me on to things like battery life, because battery life has been pretty good on both of them, with the Samsung, for me, having a worse standby time, but probably a little bit better actual battery life. This is a 4,000 milliamp hour size. This is 3561, but this is still really good battery life, but you get faster charging on the Samsung. These still are those type of phones that they can last most of the day. You're probably charging at 8 p.m. if you're a heavy user. And if you're just a medium to heavy user, you can make it through a day, but these are not going into the second day. Unless you're a light user. And if you're going into the second day, you're not a heavy user, because these phones are definitely not all day phones, and then some with heavy use. They're not that. but they're definitely enough to make it your work day and most of your day. So that's how I sum these up. That's how they work. And that's just what I've experienced months later. The Samsung also has a bit louder audio as well. So wrapping it up, you can tell by basically most of my video that the Samsung was winning most of this department. It is the newer phone. This one did come out last year, so they did have a head start to beat this device, and they've done so. Extra camera, faster chip, more RAM, also louder audio, better battery size, and it also has more feature set. But it's that same old story where some people are still going to prefer the iPhone for its look, its shape, its brand, also its iOS experience and ecosystem platform, along with the applications. Some people just don't want to use the Android experience no matter how good they get. So the iPhone still has a strong place in the market, and definitely I think a lot of people would still choose this over the Galaxy S25. But months later, if I was being technically honest with you here, and months later though, if I was being straight up honest as an owner of both, I would have to give the nod to the Galaxy S25 as being the better phone of these two currently. So that's how I feel about these months later. Let me know if you have any more questions about your research on the Galaxy S25 versus the iPhone 16, or if this is not the phones you're comparing the S25 to something else or the 16 to something else, and you have a question, drop it down below in the comments. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.